My name is Jemmy, and I'm 16 years old. My story begins 2 years ago when my parents and I migrated from our country to find a better life in the U.S. We were very poor. We had no means of comfortable survival and no hope for a change. So we decided to change our circumstances instead. There was no way we could afford the cost and bear with the long process of legal means of living in the United States. So we did what others had done. We became illegal immigrants. Oh, don't be so shocked. We're not bad people. I know it's wrong. I mean, it's called illegal for a reason. I am aware that it's not what we should have done, but this was crucial in our case. We didn't know what else to do. It was either this or stay home and die of starvation. We chose the better option, and for a while, it all worked. We lived simple lives. Mama and I worked as maids. Papa, on the other hand, took whatever job he could get. We knew how dangerous it was to get exposed and did everything to blend in. We were managing like that until one day we heard on the TV some news that later became our worst nightmare. The government was taking new and extreme measures to deport illegal immigrants. This put our entire lives in jeopardy. The daily deportations were increasing rapidly. Hundreds of illegal immigrants were being found. We couldn't risk getting caught because there was nothing, absolutely nothing, waiting for us back home. My parents panicked, not knowing what to do. We'd been hiding for long as illegal immigrants, and we knew that we'd most likely get deported. In the rush of things, an idea popped into my head that I knew could save the whole situation. The thing is, it was too extreme. I thought about it a lot, and eventually, I decided to do it. In one of the houses where I worked, I met a boy who I ended up falling in love with. He was the son of the household, rich, handsome, and somehow we dated. Of course, it was a strange relationship we always had to hide. We'd never let our parents know of this. They would only worry. Now, when this problem of deportation arose, I knew Josh, my boyfriend, was the only person who could help me. He was American and from a wealthy and powerful family. I knew he loved me, and I thought of him at most times as my future partner. So, maybe, if things got more official between us, the chances of us staying in the U.S. would rise. Now, I'm not talking about marriage. I wish that would work. Well, I could ask him to marry me, but I wasn't sure if that would be legal at my age, and his parents would definitely not approve. It was going to be a long, long story. So instead, I came up with an idea that was more doable. I wanted to get pregnant. Surely Josh would stay by my side. He wouldn't let me do this alone. And if that was the case, he'd make sure no one would take away his beloved girlfriend and baby. Even his parents would accept us when a baby is involved. My plan seemed just perfect. Getting pregnant was the easy part. I read online all about it, and I followed the instructions. I waited for the right time of the month, and I got with Josh. Of course, he thought I was on the pill because I answered with yes every time he asked. It didn't work the first time, so I kept trying. Until one day, the pregnancy test showed positive for pregnancy. Even though things were working according to my plan, when I saw the results, I froze in my place. Was I really pregnant? Seeing the results in my own eyes made everything feel so real. Days after, I went to Josh and told him about the pregnancy. His cold reaction was very confusing and humiliating for me. As if he couldn't understand my words, he said, "What did you say?" I repeated my words and showed him the pregnancy test. Truthfully, I expected Josh to smile widely and say, "Oh my God." But no, at that moment and right before my eyes, his face became like a mask of anger. He blamed me for not using protection properly and said I should not even think of telling anyone anything, and even if I did, he would deny it anyway. Our relationship had always been in secret, so no one would bear witness. I cried, begging him, but he didn't listen. The next day, I was fired. So there I was, one pregnant, jobless, illegal immigrant. I realized that instead of solving our problems, I had made it even worse. I had no choice now. I had to tell my parents. I imagined how they would react. Mama was a Christian. Dad was a peaceful man. Still, as his daughter, I knew he would be a scary disciplinarian when the situation arose. But I had to tell them anyway. Papa and Mama sat in the living room, tired as they looked at me. I saw how much strain they were under, and my heart broke all over again. The stress and worry of deportation were killing them, and I knew I was about to make it all worse. When I finally told them the truth, they were indeed shocked. Mama looked at Papa. They both looked at me. There was an uncomfortable silence as I waited for their reaction. When the silence became too much, I began to shakily explain that the reason I even considered getting pregnant at first was that I wanted to help. I cried and asked them to forgive me. I told them that the plan backfired and my boyfriend didn't want to help. My mother wrapped her arms around my shoulder while crying, and Papa put his hand on my knee, a tear running down his cheeks. Seriously, I was confused. What was going on? My Papa crying instead of giving me the talk of my life? They were silent for a little while, but then I asked them what I was going to do with the baby. Papa said I should keep it, that it might even be better that way. What? How could they say that? It was true that I got pregnant to help them, but it was obvious that I did a horrible mistake. I sacrificed my whole life ahead of me, even though I had practically volunteered. How could they think of sacrificing me easily like that? Days went by, and I couldn't speak to them. I felt betrayed by my own parents. How could they tell me to keep the baby and destroy my life? How could they not worry after they heard all I'd been through? So I went ahead and told my mom that I've decided to get an abortion, whether she wants to help me through it or not. My mom seemed upset with my decision, but she didn't argue and assured me that she'll help. The next day, she assisted me with setting an appointment at the clinic, and it felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. Regardless of that, my connection with my parents didn't improve, and they only seemed to be feeling sadder with each passing day. A day prior to my appointment, I woke up to find the house empty. I called my parents, but no one answered. It was strange because it wasn't like them to just leave and not say anything. I also tried to call them, but they didn't answer. I started to worry, but I didn't give it much thought. However, when a few hours passed by and they still were absent, I started to seriously worry. Could they be troubled with the police or get held by the authorities? All kinds of thoughts were racing through my mind, and I was panicking. I went to my parents' room trying to find anything that could give me a clue as to what was going on. And boom, here it was, a letter on my mom's desk that said, "Notice to appear" on it. I didn't understand what it meant exactly, so I started reading. The letter was from the government. It was an order for us to appear at court to review our resident status. My heart dropped. Even though we were expecting this, it never really hit me until I saw that letter. I looked at the date set for court, and it was for today. I freaked out. I had no idea what to do. My parents were probably getting an order of deportation at the moment. I had to act fast. Without thinking, I headed out to Josh's place. He was the only person who could help me. When Josh saw me, he was confused. He asked what's wrong. As I was trying to explain to him what had happened, I almost fainted. Josh held me and said that I should relax and tell him what happened. When I did, Josh quickly called his father and asked him what should be done. After several phone calls, Josh said that everything will be taken care of, and together, we headed to court. It was crazy how much power Josh's family had, because when I got there, my parents' trial was delayed for some hours, and they were sitting in the discussion room with a fancy lawyer. When I got there, the lawyer asked me if I was planning to continue with my pregnancy. I looked at my parents and I didn't know how to answer that. The lawyer continued to explain that if my answer was yes, It would help his case very much, and we most likely won't get deported." "And if not?" I asked. The lawyer answered quietly, "Then the chances of staying here won't be that high." My mom lowered her head, then told me that they apologized if I felt pressured about the baby, and told me that they didn't tell me about the notice because they didn't want this to affect the decision I make about my pregnancy. My dad then said that they would never think of sacrificing their own daughter. Seeing him crying was unexpected. He said that there are some things that I don't know about. Problems with dangerous family members were only one of the reasons we had to change locations. If we were to go back to our home country, we could be in real danger. It had been pretty ugly, and they tried to shield me from it all. I was surprised to hear that going back to our country was going to be life-threatening. Dealing with all of this was really hard and complicated. But the reality was that I had a baby on the way, and it could be the only reason to keep us going. "I want to keep the baby," I said. My mom had tears in her eyes. "Are you sure?" Yes, I was sure more than anything that I never want to see my family in danger. I never thought it was possible, but now, 8 months later, I am at peace. Even though Josh didn't want to be a part of the baby's life, I did really well with the help of my parents. The baby girl is already knocking and would be out anytime soon. For the life of me, I can't even believe I once tried to abort this sweet angel. Yes, that's her name, Angel. And she is a constant source of joy to me. My parents were never deported and were granted residence because I was carrying an American child. And I also was underage. So my parents were given permission to stay with me, thanks to Josh's parents' lawyer. I don't know what the future holds and what we will do, but we're trying our best to keep going as a solid family. This was a terrible experience, but still, I am thankful for it. It is the reason I have my angel.
The school principal obeys all of my commands. Well, he can't say no to me. After all, I know his secret. I clutched my test with the big C- on it. As I opened the door to Principal Matthews' office, I felt my heart racing. This was my first time doing it since I found out the principal's big secret. I only told him yesterday, and though he unhappily agreed to my terms, I was nervous. I tried my best not to let it show when he looked up at me. "Principal Matthews?" I spoke. "I need you to change this." I put the test on his desk. "I need an A." For a second, I thought he would refuse, but with a sigh, he nodded. "Okay, Penelope." I left the office and exhaled in relief. I couldn't help but smile. My plan was working. The next day, I wasn't worried about being late to school. I got sent straight to the principal's office, and I thought I'd ask him not to give me detention. Until I saw my crush Aaron, with his blonde hair and impossibly green eyes. I was always looking for a chance to get closer to him, and this seemed like the perfect opportunity. After school, Aaron and I were the only two people who were sent to serve detention in the library, helping the elderly librarian sort out books. Aaron said, "Weird. I've never had detention here." I chuckled nervously. "Oh, do you get detention regularly?" With a smile, he nodded and said, "Do you want a kiss?" I was shocked and I said, "Yeah, why not?" We started kissing for a few minutes, and then the elderly lady saw us and started yelling. I didn't even dream of my plan working so well. He asked for my number, but detention time came to an end and we both went our separate ways for the day. The cafeteria was always so loud at lunch. And yet the worst part of it wasn't the noise, it's the people. While my friends and I just tried to eat our food in peace, some of the popular kids chose us as our target for the day. "Aw, Penny Pooh, did no one tell you this look is like 10 years out of style?" Angela said as she looked me up and down. That girl has been on my case since we were in middle school. I considered ignoring her the way I always did, but I remembered that I got the power I have now. From this day on, I wasn't the easy target I used to be. "You know what, Angie Boo?" I stood up and looked the mean girl straight in the eyes. "Did no one tell you that your behavior is like an eternity out of style?" I said, and then grabbed a handful of my French fries and threw them in her face. food fight!" someone yelled, and the air was immediately filled with food getting thrown in every direction. I can't say I didn't enjoy it. Throwing every piece of food in my reach towards Angela and her gang was as fun as I imagined it being. "Enough!" Principal Matthews shouted at everyone, and everyone had to quiet down and watch him walk across the food on the ground. Everyone except me looked terrified. The principal looked around with a stern expression. His only question was, "Who started this?" Angela said, "It was but I interrupted her. "Angela, Principal Matthews, sir. She was the one who started it." The principal looked at me and then turned to Angela and said to her, "Detention until the end of the school year, and I want to see your parents tomorrow." He turned around and walked away without listening to her protests. I bit my lip to hide a smile and just shrugged when Angela gave me an angry look. Math class was always a living hell for everyone who had Mr. Charleston as their teacher. That day he was mumbling his explanation of the new theme, and since he was doing a horrible job, everyone had trouble concentrating. "Am I boring you?" he yelled suddenly, addressing everyone in the room but looking straight at my best friend Gia. "No, sir," she said quietly. But he kept on yelling, displeased with our lack of attention. "Can we get back to the lesson?" someone asked, tired of the teacher's irrelevant lectures. But that just made the teacher angrier. He was always like this, Mr. Buttface, with his bad explanations and even worse temper. I could see that Gia was almost crying. I knew I had to do something about it. When the girls went the other way to history class, I turned to the principal's office instead. Once I was there, I asked him to give us another math teacher. I could see that he wasn't too happy about being a 17-year-old puppet, but it's not like he had a choice considering what I knew. While going to class, I noticed a weird situation in the parking lot. Two seniors picking on a small freshman. The girl was distressed while the jerks were laughing at her. Usually, no one would try to mess with seniors. They were invincible to every grade below. But now that I felt more powerful, I had the bravery to stand up to them. "Let her go!" I yelled, and while the guys were distracted with surprise, the girl had the chance to run. They were mad at me for ending their fun. But unlike that young girl, I knew these guys, and I wrote down their names. Going straight to the principal's office was the first thing I did the next day. At this point, I knew that I could use my power for good. I could make the school a better, safer place. And that required jerks like them to be out. "I can't kick them out," the principal protested. "Then how about expelled?" I could see the defeat in the set of his shoulders. "Expelled? Yeah, I can do that. They'll be expelled." Another win for a mighty Penny. Aaron and I kept texting each other, though we still haven't had a chance to hang out. He was so busy studying after class. And now, that terrible math teacher was teaching his class. I didn't really solve the problem. I just made it their problem instead of mine. He needed to be fired. Maybe then Aaron would have more time for me. That required another trip to the principal's office. This time, it took way longer. He was set on keeping Mr. Buttface at the school, but I was more stubborn and with a clear advantage on my case. I wasn't going to lay this to rest. I knew the power I had over him was serious, and no matter how much he argued with me, at the end of the day, he would have to do as I say. Unless he wanted to end up behind bars. After a while, he gave in. With how devastated he looked, I thought he would either smash something or cry. And actually, while I'm here, I started biting my lip. Principal Matthews sighed and took off his glasses. "Yes, Penny." He was obviously not looking forward to my next request. "Ask the teachers to go easy on Aaron, the blonde junior. He spends way too much time studying. He deserves all B's and A's." A few days later, Aaron, now less stressed and busy, asked me out. I was feeling drunk with power. Because of me, the students of this school won't have to deal with a terrible teacher. And as a reward, I'd get to date the guy of my dreams. When later that day, Gia said that she got us tickets to see our favorite band live, I felt like I was over the moon. That is, until our parents said they wouldn't let us go to a concert on a school night. "Don't worry," I quickly said, looking at the three moms with the most innocent eyes. "There are no classes the next day. I'll get Principal Matthews to call you and confirm," I said with a charming smile. "Penny, what are you doing?" Callie whisper screamed once we were in her room. "Don't worry, Cal, I've got this covered." And I, or rather Principal Matthews, didn't disappoint. We got to go to the concert and have a day off in the middle of the school week. With everything going so well, I didn't have time to feel bad for what I was doing. The next day back, we had a prom planning meeting. Everyone wanted a big, glorious prom, which wasn't possible with our budget. This was another opportunity for Mighty Me to do some good. We all deserved a perfect night of fun at the end of the school year. After saying I was going to the bathroom, I went to find the principal. As I approached him with a vicious smile, I could see that he knew that I was about to ask for something. "We're having a prom budgeting meeting, Principal, and you need more money." See, I knew you would understand. 5 minutes after I returned, Principal Matthews walked in and announced the new budget. Now we had the money for the prom we wanted. I would get my perfect romantic fairy tale night. "Too bad I can't go," Aaron said with a smile after I told him all about the next day. "What?" "Big football game the next day. The coach is making us miss prom." I didn't plan for that. Still, I managed to solve the issue by convincing the principal to reschedule the match for a week later. Now all the football players could attend prom. In the next couple of weeks, I tried to use my powers in a wise, just way. Every bad teacher got fired. My friends had better grades. The mean girls and guys got bad grades and detention. I slowly made the school a better place, a fair place. The second librarian, who was always mean to the students and wouldn't let us talk in the library, got replaced with a new, nicer librarian. The guy who played all lead roles in the school plays and was always mean to everyone, not in the drama class, started getting bad grades and had to leave the drama club himself. With only a month left until prom, that perfect paradise cracked. I stared at the anonymous message on my screen. "I know about the principal's secret too. I'm in and I plan to play big," it read. Going to school the next day, I was extremely nervous. The principal seemed mad over having to deal with me. Now that there's a second blackmailer, things could go south fast. I decided to try to keep my requests to a minimum for the time being until I understood what the other blackmailer has planned. My plan failed after 2 periods when I saw the principal's secretary yelling at some poor guy. That woman was way out of line. The school would be a much better place without her. The principal, however, didn't seem to think so when I came to him asking to fire her. "How dare you?" he yelled. "Dora has been working for me for years. I won't fire her." I snapped. "Don't fire her. Wait until your secret gets out and then she'll get fired anyway when you will go to jail." "Is that what you want, Principal Matthews? Is it?" He cleared his throat and looked down. "Don't test me, sir," I added. "Fine," he agreed. I'll do it. She'll be gone by tomorrow." The other blackmailer started acting that same day. As per his requests, the rest of the school day for that year are cut in half, and the principal invites one of the coolest bands in our town to play at our prom. A part of me was excited, while the other half was getting more nervous each day. The other blackmailer's requests were big. They were not playing it safe. I kept my requests to a minimum, still trying to serve some justice in this crazy school. And when my friends were about to be unfairly, in my opinion, sent to detention for skipping a class, I had to interfere. I followed the principal down the hall and I tried to talk to him. "Penelope, stay out of this," he said in a tense voice. "Gia is getting her well-deserved detention and there is nothing you can do about it." "But sir," he said. "No. Won't let her get away. This is a school, not a circus." I said, "You'll regret it." He seemed exasperated at my words, but walked away without giving him a chance to reply. I was working out a plan to remind him of his place on my way back from school. When I looked up, I saw Aaron kissing another girl. Needless to say, by the time I was home, I was overwhelmed with frustration, sadness, and desperation. The combination of the principal's little rebellion and Aaron's betrayal shook me to the core. I acted on a whim without thinking through things. I took my laptop, made an anonymous account, and started posting clues to the principal's secret in my school's web group. If he wanted to act all tough, I was going to show him that I was tougher. Soon enough, he called. His pitiful voice calmed me, giving back my sense of power. He was willing to do anything to get me to erase those posts. He sounded like he was crying. A part of me realized that I should have felt bad for him, but instead, that made me feel so much better. "Remember Aaron?" I asked. I grinned and looked